Hey everyone, it's Allie, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Lich and Necromancy reworks that are coming with Season 3 of Last Epoch. Now, these are going to be pretty much on the same scale as the Paladin and Void Knight reworks in Season 2, if you're familiar with those. And personally, I am really excited for this, and I'm likely going to be playing a Lich as my starter builds, given that, well, the new skill is pretty cool. So let's get into all of it, discuss all this, and get you excited for, well, making minion builds fun again, and making Lich playable outside of one skill. To start off with Lich, we are getting a new skill called Flay. This is a pretty cute skill where you slash an enemy in front of you, and if you end up killing it, it does an explosion. The interesting thing about this is that explosion can also hit the same target as the one that you flayed, meaning you have some really good built-in clearing just from this, where you kill one enemy, it'll basically propagate the whole pack. And quality of life like that typically is what makes it scale a contender for a really good build. Flay on its own also has some really nice quality of life built into it, where it will automatically teleport you to enemies within 3 meters, make it feel pretty comfy as a melee skill. And in terms of what you could do with it and scale it further from there, there's going to be quite a lot you could do. That explosion that happens on death is technically a spell, so you can choose to simply just forego the attack component of the skill, scale your spell damage, and presumably there's likely going to be a way for you to be able to trigger the explosion without killing something, allowing you just to play a spell build based off of that with maybe something like spark charges. You can also simply forgo the explosion and instead go the attack routes and use it kind of akin to something like Flicker Strike from PoE. In terms of scaling, there is quite a bit here that they showed us, and I'm personally really excited for it because yeah, this skill is looking to be pretty busted. First off, you are able to convert it to whatever you want to. Do you want to make it poison? You can go Corrupted Blood. Do you want to make it Frostbite? Go Frostbite. Or do you want to go Damned? Go Soul Ripper. It is up to you. So all the different scaling methods that exist are available for us to abuse with this, meaning that is going to be quite varied. What I'm personally really excited for is a synergy with Deadly Plot. Deadly Plot gives you up to 20% more spell damage with both Flay and anything triggered by Flay per 100 maximum mana they have. This on its own is going to be an insane scaler because they did mention that you're going to be able to trigger Rip Blood and Chaos Bolts through Flay, meaning we might have some sort of Autobomber builds that's going to be available from this, which I'm personally very excited for. I can imagine this being some sort of build where you're simply just using Flay just for the quality of life of it teleporting you around. And then as you're doing that, you just trigger 10,000 skills all over the place that auto aim and just kill everything on screen. And presumably, if, for example, a Chaos Bolt or a Rip Blood from Flay kills an enemy, you might still get the Flay explosion. And if that happens, my god, is this skill going to be insane for clearing. Now, mana stacking on Lich is not the greatest archetype ever. If you're not playing a sorcerer, you don't have that much access to mana, but I feel like with the Lich rework, they haven't shown us the full passive tree. I expect there to be at least a few mana nodes, so while you're not going to be able to get to 9,000 mana like you could on a sorcerer, you can still likely get at least 4,000 to 5,000 mana or so, allowing you for a pretty strong setup. Finally, to make this even stronger, they did show off a supporter unique item that was created called Executioner's Tithe. And this is kind of cute as it does fit in with that kind of archetype where you get up to 18% more mana while keeping up the stacks of this. And it basically just turns Harvest into a massive cooldown rather than something that you'd spam. I am not exactly sure if there's a lot of synergy here with this, especially given that there's a new spear that's coming out, which we'll talk about more and likely going to be the thing I'm going to be planning my whole build around that's going to give you significantly more mana. But this weapon might be a pretty interesting early game item to get that sort of build archetype going. From there, they're also reworking some of the other base Acolyte skills. For example, Rip Blood, instead of it just being a target with a very small AoE around it, basically the single worst level 1 skill that feels miserable to use, now becomes a frontal, which is just a little line, and honestly, that by itself makes it so much better for the first few zones. And for the many different skills that trigger Rip Blood, this probably is going to feel even more comfier. They're also just buffing the damage of it. First off, they're giving it Blood Bond, which makes it now do good single target damage by just constantly draining a boss. And they're also just significantly buffing the damage of it. So between that and between Carnage allowing you to cast Mara Shards, I'm sure there probably is some pretty decent synergy here. There's the Mara Shard-esque build with like Ghost Flame that was kind of building up to maybe be something, but there just weren't enough synergies there, and maybe this is the final push that I needed to become a pretty interesting build. Finally, for these skill updates, they're also pretty much mostly reworking Aura Decay to where it now is even easier to deal with, as you're going to be taking even less poison damage. And the cool thing is they're now allowing you to convert it to other damage types. So you can go Blood Font to make it now based off of Bleed, Cold Death if you want to make it based off of Frostbite. And with one of the Flay nodes, you're able to actually move your Aura Decay onto the boss, meaning you just let it sit there and ramp to an absurd amount, because Aura Decay can very easily stack hundreds upon hundreds of a debuff onto something. So we might actually be able to see some sort of interesting build pop up with that, and or just finally see Aura Decay not just be a utility skill people used to take in the past just to not die to poison. To move on to some passive reworks, we did get a small showcase of some of the new passive points coming, and honestly, I am really excited for Cursed Feast, as it's going to give you a lot of baseline leech, but the leech is going to immediately turn off if you hit 66% health. They're also adding in a new node later in the Lich tree that caps your health at 50%, meaning that with you playing Lich form and whatnot, you just permanently have your leech active at all times, similar to what you would have on a Slayer in PoE, which is going to be an absurd defensive layer. Impact Ward is also just really strong, making it take 20% less damage over time. Damage over time is by far the scariest thing when it comes to pushing high corruption, and even post the nerfs that happened in Season 2, it's still awful, and this, well, completely fixes that. The other really cute thing here, which I like, which might look like a downside, but realistically isn't, the damage over time bypasses ward, allows you to somewhat play a hybrid build, where you just use your health and your insane health leech to deal with any dots, and then your ward can just act as a buffer for big hits, which then hopefully you have some decent word replenishing to get it back up. I'm not too sold on the whole hybrid thing, as that doesn't really have that much synergy in Last Epoch, but hey, at least it's trying, and for all we know, there might be more passive points in Lich Tree that help with this further. Finally, let's discuss Necromancer a little bit. I'm personally not that big of a fan of it, but I wouldn't do it service if we don't discuss it, and well, there's some pretty big stuff coming for it. Realistically, the reworked Necromancer isn't going to really be based on passives and skills, but it's mostly going to be based on quality of life. Tomorrow, we should be getting a quality of life post, which I would like to cover in more detail. That's going to go over a lot of minion changes, and I feel like that on its own is going to be the real Necromancer buff, rather than any sort of reworks that they're doing to their tree. Either way, they're getting a really nice defensive node through Effigy, which is just going to make it so 10% of your damage is just taken by a minion, which on its own is just great, given that tree has almost no defenses in the slightest, and the only thing you can do to live is just to go low life. At the same time, they're giving you a really cool way to scale. We always love more ways to be able to scale builds, with Forbidden Teachings giving you 1% increased crit chance for minions per 1 intelligence, which is, well, kinda silly. At the same time, I believe there's a Skelly Assassin Acid Flask build that's okay, and the more minion damage over time per vitality would also be a very, very strong scaler for that specifically. We'll see if anything comes out of all that, but realistically, if minions still have somewhat weak clear, where it just feels a little bit clunky to get your minions around and not do maps at 1 map per hour, it's not going to really matter how much they buff Necromancer, outside of it just being really good for bossing like it's traditionally been. I'm just excited from everything they've shown, and I am super on board with trying to play Flay as my starter build, and I'm very interested to go and theorycraft it over the next few days on my stream on Twitch and see if we can make up something that looks pretty interesting with it. If you have any questions on any of this, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to answer you and discuss any of this further with you at any point. Or if you want to join a community and come hang out with other kitties, feel free to drop by our Discord or my Twitch stream and hang out with us at any time. With that said, I hope you're just excited for Season 3 as I am. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you all in the next video.